would like to open this session as a Q&A and meron tayong naka-ready mic no, para sa mga tanong natin.
Hi, good afternoon. So my name is Windel.
Windel. Hello, nice to meet you,
I work
Windel.
as a software developer
Mhm.
for US companies. So sa
Wow.
backend. Question lang kasi I recently started to read documentations and have some basic knowledge. As in super basic lang like yung discuss ni DJ. Yung pag sinabing exhaustive or yung galit lagi, does that include dun sa pag nag-test coverage kayo with the Rust? Kasi yun yung from a software perspective kasi diba test are tawag dito are important, pero kasi yung nakikita kong based sa explanation exhaustive lang siya with in terms of logic. How about for the test? Gusto ko lang malaman kasi
Yeah. So great question. Your question is in Rust, what parts are exactly exhaustive and what parts are not, and if for tests are they exhaustive? So for tests specifically, it's subjective. So if you guys do software development, we have this thing called test coverage. It means how much of your code is covered with a test. That means it has a test that you can run and check if it's working. In Rust, it's not opinionated on the coverage of your test. What it's opinionated on is, you're right, logic. There are some constructs in Rust, such as an enum, that you can check for the value of an enum that Rust requires you to be exhaustive, meaning cover all possible inputs. So between those two, those are the boundaries.
Also, I want to add, di ba you said something about tests? For me, when we're talking about exhaustive, the tests is actually the compiler. So, so di ba, when you write your code and it's not exhaustive, it won't even compile. It's not like JavaScript na even if it has errors, it's gonna compile. It's gonna have runtime errors. It doesn't even compile. So for me, when we're dealing about exhaustive, yung tests is basically the compiler complaining at you. Yun.
I would like to add, sorry, nakabukas ba to? I'd also like to add to that na rin, na kung sakaling meron kang test cases that you want to try exhaustively across different kinds of values, there are crates out there that help you out with that kind of use case. Kanwari si prop test. If you've heard of property-based testing, siya na yung bahala sa pag-generate ng different kinds of wacky inputs. If you're familiar with the terms fuzzy testing, kanwari yung pag-vary ng mga bytes that you pass into this arbitrary function that you have, you can assert certain things about yung behavior niya. And that's pretty much how you could try exhaustively testing out different forms of input, kanwari between 0 to 100, and kung kanwari yung form ng string mo should start with some specific number of characters, any kind of property-based testing. So you can try exploring that as well, the prop test crate.
Hello, I'm Albert. So I'm a technical director at Coding Jury. So ang question ko guys, since we're talking about Rust, right, for creating smart contracts. So basically, it's used for like Solana, Polkadot, and their protocol, right? So what if I'm interested in creating smart contracts for Ethereum? So I think the language there should be Solidity, right? Or is it possible to use Rust on an Ethereum blockchain?
Great question. So how it works technically is you can use any language, because if you write a certain program in this language, you compile it to what we call a bytecode, right? And then whatever language you use, you can compile this into a certain bytecode. And the Ethereum network would run it the same way, regardless of your input language, because it compiles and converts into the same input, which is the bytecode. Now, your question is, number one, I will answer it in possibility. Is it possible to use Rust to build smart contracts for Ethereum? The question is yes, it's possible. Use Rust, compile it to the bytecode, then the Ethereum network would run it on its own. The second question, I think the underlying there is that would I use it right now? My answer to that is no, because Ethereum supports Solidity mainly as the language. So the difficulty of using Rust is that you need to reinvent all of the tooling that Solidity has and currently supports by the community, because it's not as common to use Rust for Ethereum, right? So now, recap, number one, yes, you can use it because it compiles to a bytecode. And then number two, I don't recommend it, especially for beginners, because the ecosystem don't openly, at least as common as Solidity, support it.
Hello, I'm Jerry. I'm a data engineer. So as a data engineer, I'm working mostly with Python and data. And my question is since Python is used for data, like there are built-in libraries for data like Pandas, PySpark for distributed. Is there an equivalent version in Rust, or how is Rust in the data industry right now?
Yes, you're very lucky with that kasi recently there's been a surge in popularity for the Polar Scrape. So if you've heard of it, it's essentially a data frame library, much like Pandas, but it's written in Rust. And so you essentially have this like multiplied performance improvement simply by being able to SIMD these instructions and do them in parallel thanks to Rayon, right? So yeah, essentially, yes.
It means a lot of opportunity for him. Wow.
The good thing about this is there's not a big push for it right now who's leading the charge in the Philippines of using Rust mainly for data engineering. So that can be something you can leverage as an opportunity if data engineering is something you're very passionate about. Definitely use that so you can get attention, market yourself as a Rust data engineering specialist.
Hello po everyone. My name is Aryan Dave. I'm from BMPI IT. We're the company that holds UNTV, the broadcast company, and Wish 1075. So my question is, I actually wrote it down. How can Rust be used to develop more secure systems software? So as working in the broadcast industry, we use low-level languages such as C++ and integrate it with modern web technologies using Electron. So uh, we use it to make use of what is that NDI technologies, no? So I'm thinking about using Rust in continuing to develop this system. But as a student focusing in cybersecurity, how Rust be used to develop these systems more securely? How can Rust be trust these security measures, bro? And thank you.
Okay. So when it comes to cybersecurity, no, Rust is very good for that because um, it's very hard to provide the correct input for Rust. It's not like other languages na parang you can input any sort of data. Also, when we're comparing low-level languages like Rust with C and other C languages, um, the good thing about Rust is you don't have to allocate the memory. So it prevents also data races. It prevents memory leaks. So those two are very good things when we're dealing with production code. And also, as we've talked about kanina, yung exhaustive din. So you have to handle all of the cases. So yeah, that's that.
Hello, so I'm Carl, college instructor.
Mm.
So related sa programming. And I've seen kasi that it says, okay, Rust is memory safe, type safe. So that includes probably null safety, right? And so on. So I'm interested if you have any experience with trying to create embedded programs, so IoT and so on in Rust. Kasi I've seen that, okay, so it's memory safe. So, and we all know constrained systems, ang IoT or other embedded system, for example. And in addition to that, of course, they're not like because of the constraint systems, so it's not that secure. For example, because you have to trade off security for kung kakasya ba sa memory. For example, yung programs that, or even the most rudimentary programs that you need for these specific memory constrained devices. So I want to know if you had any experiences with doing that. So yun.
Right, so I'm glad you asked though kasi as part of my course sa computer science noon, we were undergoing through this IoT Cup. So parang imagine it's like a Internet of Things kind of competition between different students. And the technology that we chose for that was actually Rust on the ESP32. So essentially, in device namin noon, we were supposed to detect leaks whenever they happen in a pipe. And yung ginagamit naming language for that when we compile it and when we load it into the ESP32 was Rust itself. Kasi yun nga, as Christian mentioned earlier, as long as you can compile it down to the machine code that the ESP32 board expects, it doesn't matter what language it came from. We just happened to be using Rust because we didn't want to deal with all sorts of race conditions that you would have. Let's say kung nag-Arduino ka lang, for example, they don't really guard you against these kinds of problems na meron kang data races between your very sensitive sensors and yung parang interrupt code that's very sensitive to not getting the mutexes right. So definitely we went with Rust for that, simply for that reason. We don't want to deal with these data races, and it worked out pretty well for us. I think we had like second runner-up dun sa entire competition na yun. So yeah, so definitely there's an ecosystem for that. The Rust website would actually claim that they have first-class support for this community. So if you want to get started with embedded systems in Rust, it's definitely one of the priority communities that they have.